Welcome to Let's Talk with Victory. I'm Leisha Lee, and I want to introduce a new cast member with us today, Miss Dawn. How are you? And welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, ladies, today's topic is stress management. Now, my first question to you all, what is stress?
It's an unavoidable feeling that we get when we sometimes go beyond our normal limits and we push ourselves, and it could be from good things or bad things.
All right.
Stress is a normal reaction. Our body is supposed to experience stress when we react to certain things. The only time stress can be something that is of a factor is if we have challenges or things that trigger us. That's when stress becomes a situation.
All right, so I am going to read a definition. I'm not saying that y'all are wrong, but this is just a definition that I have. Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any event or thought that makes you feel frustrated, angry, or nervous. Stress is your body's reaction to a challenge or demand. In short bursts, stress can be positive, such as when it helps you avoid danger or meet a deadline. How do you all feel about that?
So I agree with that. I mean, I think stress is an everyday part of life, but it just depends on how you let it affect you. Sometimes you can be stressed so that you can meet a deadline, and or you can be stressed because you're trying so hard, and you really don't understand that that's what's pushing you, that's what's motivating you. Or you can just be stressed and just be like, I can't do this anymore. So I agree with the definition. It's a part of life. That would be my definition for it. Stress is a part of life. We don't like it, but it happens.
Okay.
So for me, I think stress starts more so with the mind. What may stress me out may not stress Chauncey out or Beatrice out or yourself. So I think it starts with the person, and it starts on how they perceive something or a person, and then it creates the emotion behind your thought.
Okay.
For me, it's the length of time. Like, I think it's prolonged. That's when you really, have to deal with the physical and mental weight of stress. Like, if, you're supposed to be stressed, for instance, to meet a deadline or by a certain situation. But when those situations, when there's no way to alleviate that stress, but there's that pressure is kind of ongoing, that's when I think you really have an issue or have to deal with stress.
So what are the signs of stress?
Heart palpitations, stomach aches.
Sleeplessness, fixation.
Okay.
Being fidgety is a word, like people face back and forth, bite their nails.
Yeah.
Having tension in your neck or your back. A lot of people carry stress in different areas, in their shoulders, in their face. Sometimes when people are stressed, they may have a twitch, or the eye may twitch, or the side of their face. So it can show in different different forms on the body.
I would say appetite too. Like, sometimes either you overeat or overeat the wrong things, or forget to eat, just because of so many external things that are going on, or internal, mentally.
Okay. So you want to say something?
No, I was going to say being irritable, loss of sleep,
Yeah.
like digestive system, stomach, just a lot of things. I should have a whole list.
Yeah, we can add to it.
I should have a whole list. I should have a whole list, but for me, there was a lot of those.
All right. So let me ask y'all these. Can these types of, I'm gonna go through some things I have, some factors that I have. Can these types of factors trigger stress, and why? First thing is money.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Definitely, yes.
The lack thereof. And if
Okay.
you have too much and not know how to manage it, it can cause stress.
But what about it causes the stress?
I think mismanagement, whether it's overspending or not having enough to meet. I think the mismanagement of it is what can cause the stress, because sometimes you might be able to see beyond what your check is, or you were expecting something and it didn't happen the way that you think, and so now you have to shuffle things around to make ends meet. We know how to do that very well, but we don't want to, so that could definitely cause stress, the management or mismanagement of money.
I would say on the flip side of that, like I was reading about trauma, and one of the things that is defined as a trauma is poverty. So I would say that like not even mismanaging money, but not even having enough to meet, you know, some basic needs, be it food, be it shelter, just not having it causes physical and mental stress for people.
That's what I was also thinking. That's what I was saying. And we look at, I'll say that money as being like a materialistic thing, but it's really a thing of survival. So if you don't have money, you're like, what am I gonna do? You know, how am I gonna feed my kids? What am I gonna do with this? How am I gonna make it? This and that. So it sends you right into stress.
Yep.
All right. The next factor, relationships. How does relationships
I would
bring
say,
about stress?
before we leave money, I would say having too much money or being perceived as having too much money can bring the wrong kinds of attention or relationships and have people pull on you unduly as a resource. Management is absolutely necessary then so that you don't overextend yourself, that you don't overcommit to organizations, to people, so that you can manage and maintain the money that you do have.
Got you.
Your relationships, the word. That's it. That is stressful, and it's not even about an intimate relationship. It's a relationship with your mom can be stressful. Relationship with your children can be stressful. Relationships, because everybody expects what you are in the relationship, and so if you don't look at a relationship for who you are and who the person is, and that's how it's supposed to mesh, then you're always going to be stressed out.
And she said a key word. I was going to say that the expectation from the relationship or from the other person in the relationship, I think causes the stress.
One of the ways to avoid that is to meet people where they at. You can't expect more from people than what they have to give you. Just
But
meet
getting
them where
there,
they at.
that's what I'm saying. Like, you got to get there, because we go into it with the expectation, like, I'm this kind of person, and so just take it, because we always use like, oh, I'm a giver, like whatever I have I give, so I expect people to just notice the little things and be like, oh, she might need, let me ask her, does she need some water? But if that's not the person's personality, it doesn't mean that they're mean or that they're not good for the relationship. It just means that that's just not who they are. They're not a proactive person. They can't see your feelings on your face. So it doesn't mean that this relationship isn't meant to be. We're not meant to be friends. It just means that you have to understand where the person is. You have to meet the person where they are, and don't put expectations on things.
So spending time with people, getting to know people, helps alleviate stress. Because you're not expecting something that they can't give, and they're not giving you something that you don't need.
Oh, that's good.
That's what I had to figure out, see, because I was like you, so, yeah, I had to separate those two, so I'm just having an understanding of that.
It's an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
I would say too, absenteeism. Like if there's a person in a specific role, like if that void is there, that can be a cause for mental or emotional, physical stress. Also too, if a person is there because of loss, or is not there because of loss or grief, that's another big stressor to process mentally, to process emotionally, and then physically to deal with that absence.
So let me ask you this: with people you have relationships with, whether it's family or friends, if you see that there's a lack that they have, or there's a need that they have, and you aren't able to fulfill that, does that affect you in any way to bring stress upon yourself?
It does for me. I care for more people than what they actually realize, but I had to grow to be mature to learn how to deal with it. I can't run around and pay everybody bills. I can't reach everybody, but I can go in prayer about what's on my heart, and it strengthens my prayer life. And as I see them grow, you know, it just does something for me.
Okay.
So I don't know if this makes sense or not, but I guess for me, I was going to say a lot of times I feel like I do take on, I guess, the expectations of other people, and I place it on myself because I try to meet those expectations. But what I'm learning is that now what I'm trying to do is I still take on the expectation a little bit, but then I try to, you know, decipher what's important to me.
Right.
And know that whatever my decision is my decision, and it's not, you know, whether I say yes or no, it's not, you know, being mean. I'm still coming from the heart. But I think to help avoid stress on my end, I try to prioritize it and say, well, is that need, and do I perceive that need to be important?
That's creating boundaries, right?
I think it becomes problematic when you get stressed behind people because you want more for them.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the biggest factors, and because you don't want to stay in your lane, because you can see beyond who they are or what they're doing right now, and so you become stressed. Like, you know, let's just take someone who has an addiction. It's like I can see beyond that person, and I don't want you to be this person.
Right.
And so you stressing and nagging them, not understanding why they are where they are and what's the root of the problem. So just little things like that is because we take on someone else's because we can see beyond that, and so that's a big stress factor.
Either see beyond it or know that, like, that's not how you would deal with it. Like, you might see better for that person, but you know that there's other ways they're capable of coping. And I think for some people, I don't want to put too many people out there, but like if you can see somebody on that path, they may be so deep into it, working late, overeating, undereating, like they don't realize how they've adapted to kind of keep up with their stress. Being somebody on the outside that can say to a friend or a family member, hey, do you realize like you're up really late? Or hey, you're missing meals. Like being the person on the outside to be able to indicate to somebody else, like, hey, you're showing some signs, and help that person then reassess whether they are genuinely stressed.
Right, and I was going to say, I think it's important as an individual that you not try to be someone else's superhero. You understand?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we have a heart to help others and we lack in helping ourselves. So we must realize that in giving people that suggestion, being an advocate for someone, giving them a strategy or helping them, that we sometimes have to make ourselves pull back, because otherwise then those stress factors will just start manifesting ourselves and affect our health. And I had to learn that for myself, you know, for family, your children, close friends, you know, as Shantae said, you see things that they need and you know that they can be better than where they are. But if we continuously put ourselves in a position of trying to be their savior, then we're lacking for ourselves. So a lot of times what I do, like Nietzsche said, you pray for them, you give them a strategy, you give them advice, and then you pull back. Because otherwise, then you start being affected.
And I think that goes back to what Kim and both Beatrice were saying, is about boundaries. Just like individually, you know, you would want that person to assert some boundaries as a helper or as an advocate too. I'm going to do my role and bring those things to your attention, but then I'm also going to step back because I'm not going to make your emergency my personal emergency.
Right.
All right, so let's talk about work. How can work be a stressor?
When you can't work from home.
Tell the people about it.
Exactly. I think when you, you let the work that you have kind of inundate you. You let it pile on. Like you're happy that, okay, I'll just use myself.
Okay.
So I have a new position, and I didn't like before, everything wasn't on me, but now everything is on me, and so it's like I'm overwhelmed sometimes because I'm a finisher. So I have to not stress myself out trying to be a finisher and understand that whatever I didn't finish is still going to be there tomorrow and the next day and the next day. But I make everything a deadline in my head. So it's like, I want to get this done before I leave. I want to get that done, or I want to get at least 3 things done. So I think that that's how work can become a stress. Or you can, again, take on other people's problems at work and think that you are a fixer. And so you want to fix everything so that you can be, not for kudos or anything, it's just that I want to fix it so that we can just have a good work environment and we all have the same level of stress.
Work can also be stressful when people see your value and they want to keep adding on to your responsibility.
Say that.
So you have to, I had to learn this as well, you have to not be afraid to speak up and say, hey, I have this on my plate and this on my plate. Right now I'm working on this. If you give me that, then you're going to have to give me more time, because otherwise I'm not going to stress myself out physically, mentally. It can't happen. So you have to be able to speak up for yourselves and not just keep taking on added responsibilities and then bring that stress into yourself.
And she said something real good. I think, that's important, identifying where you are in your space. Identifying where you are in your space and know what you can handle and know what you can't handle, and speaking up. And, you can be professional and just say, well, this is what I have on my plate, you can ask them what their expectation as far as a deadline,
Right.
but then just say this is, and then you can try to prioritize your work, or you can just say, I'll be able, I'm not going to be able to meet that deadline, but I can meet it by this day.
Absolutely.
Got you.
I would say, Shantae, I'm gonna take a page out of your book and be a little transparent. Overworking to avoid other things is my little coping thing. Go all in, do extra hours to avoid some other stressful things. So then get stressed by the work itself because you're doing too much of it, because you don't want to deal with some other practical things. And I think that people do that, especially now since we've come to like this more remote work dynamic. So you have to put boundaries in your life. This is a lunchtime. This is a dinner time. This is family time. This is the weekend. Why are you on the laptop? And just really put some boundaries in place so you don't then become stressed by the thing that you may be very good at or you need to do for a living, but allowing it to creep.
And a lot of people don't realize when you're working from home, you actually are putting in more time and more effort and hours in working from home than you actually would if you were face-to-face and on the job. Because that computer, it can take you in and you realize you started at 6 or 7 in the morning and now it's almost 7 or 8. You're like, wait a minute, I need to punch out. So like you said, give yourselves a boundaries and limitations and say, okay, even if I'm working remotely from home, from this time to this time, set a timer. My day is over at this time, and not allow yourself to be pulled in by the work on the computer.
All right. Ms.
And
Dawn, you wanna
I was
add?
going to say also, it could be what type of job you have.
Okay.
So for me, this was years ago, I was a team leader for children with physical and mental disabilities.
Okay.
So I had like 15 or more people that I had like to oversee or help, and it just was so much stress because I had to deal with this, deal with that. It was really like a hostile environment.
Okay.
So the atmosphere alone just provided stress for me.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yes.
And then
so-
thinking about the children, thinking about the real reason.
Yes,
why,
that's
so the adults that are-
exactly, yes,
and then
yes.
medical issues that could be really complex.
Yes, it was, but if you had a passion for it and love, so I just try to bypass all of that. Yeah. So.
Y'all spoke on children, so I want to kind of shift towards school. And I know, Kim, I know you're in school. How does school affect you? Or what are the stresses that comes from going to school or being in school as an adult?
For me, so this is my first semester back in school.
Okay.
So I've been out of school for like 7 years. So just trying to get back in my routine of things, of trying to go to work because I started a new position at the same time, and then trying to go to school at the same time. Say I'm taking a few classes and trying to make sure I'm home in time to log on because everything is remote now, and then still trying to make sure my family is still eating, everybody is still situating, I'm still making myself available to say to my husband and my children, like, how was your day, just to make sure they're okay. So just trying to like juggle and trying to just
Bring
get
a
back in the timeline of things has been a big stressor for me. And for me, the way I know that I'm stressed because so I've been stressed about several things, and sometimes I'm in it so long I don't know that I'm stressed.
Okay.
And that's my problem. I don't know. So someone may look at me and say, Kim is really stressed, but I will walk through here and say, I don't know what they're talking about because I don't feel like I'm stressed. I feel like I'm handling everything okay. Like, okay, I got you. I can take that. I can take that. But I notice for me, when I'm really stressed, my skin starts to break out really bad. My back, my face, everything starts to break out really, it starts affecting me physically. Or I'll get like really, really sick. So I've noticed that I had midterms last week. So I woke up and my whole face broke out and I was like, oh my gosh, I am stressed. So that's how I carry my stress. I carry my stress physically, out on my face and physically. You'll see it, but I won't see it. So.
I could relate to that. Yeah, mine is my stomach. And so I know, wait a minute, something going on, and I don't eat, and I'd probably say too, I'll have insomnia. So things like that, just over stressing. And I always take on other people's problems and forget my own. I always neglect and think, I can fix this, I can fix that. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I need to be fixed. There's something wrong, wait a minute.
That's a word for itself.
Do y'all think that stress can be acute, meaning short term, or chronic is long term?
It could be both. It could be suddenly in a tragic event like a car accident or a death. It could be on sudden, or it could be long-term, chronic, occurring every day for 6 months or more. Yeah, that's definitely chronic, long-term.
Do you think it's something that people don't pay attention to?
You can if you in it, if you're experiencing it, you can be in it and not even realize it till somebody that pays attention notice you and say, look, I noticed this is going on with you, and you have to be open to trust them because you can't always see what they see. You can look back and say, oh, I have been sleeping this long, or I have been dealing with this in silence, but sometimes it can happen and you not even know you shifted into not combing your hair, not showering like you normally do, laying around more, crying more. It's different ways.
I think that's when you've surpassed stress at that point. You're into depression. For stress, I can relate to what you said, Kim, and I think probably everyone up here has the same stress factor. You're so used to doing everything because that's just who you are. As a woman, as a mother, as an auntie, as an entrepreneur, or whatever your role may be, you're so used to just doing everything that you don't realize that it's a stress factor until you literally lay your head back one night and you just feel like somebody's laying on your chest. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm stressed out. I gotta, but I really think that that's everybody. When you're just so used to going. So I think that it can be chronic. That's one factor of it being chronic. Acute, yes, it can be because it might be just a mild stressor. You might have a test coming up and you're stressed, but then as soon as you get past it, for me, I had to take a national certification exam and I was stressed. I was fine up until the point because I was just when I registered for it, I was like, okay, it's months off. And I thought that it was some more months off. Then the people called and was like, see you next week. And I was like, what? And then I instantly got stressed. And then I was stressed all the way until I got there. I was sitting there and then the computers wouldn't act right. And so I got even more stressed. Probably get left out of there with some bald patches. Jesus Christ. And then, so I think that in that type of situation, it's acute because it's temporary. But when I left, so I got my results right there after the test. I didn't know I was going to do that either. And then when I saw that I passed, everybody was looking at me like, what is wrong with you? And I was just like, oh man, I passed and now I don't have to be stressed and I don't have to start smoking.
But some people work very well under stress. I'm like that. I hate what it makes me feel like, what my body goes through, but I work very well under stress. So when it's over, it's like, oh, look what product came, but I don't like how I felt as I was going through it.
I'm guilty of that, but what that teaches you is that you had the resources, you had the information, you had all the tactics all the time. So sometimes stress is self-imposed. Put ourselves in those situations, we back ourselves up against deadlines or budgets or whatever the case. But we had, the resources all along.
Now, is there a difference between good and bad stresses?
Yes.
And see, I would even say that's a good stress, like
Right.
being, in that frenzy, knowing we have an event, we have a deadline to get the thing done, or having, we do arts and productions, all of us. But putting all those different pieces together and come out to this final magnificent thing, that's a good stress because the product, the outcome, we can, celebrate that. Good stress, but then there are also some bad ones, like we talked about overworking, or being in a very high stress work environment, because the stakes are high. We had, children in their medical well-being at stake.
Right, and the stress is chronic. When you hold on to those stresses and your body is reacting and you keep ignoring those signals and the signs, you have a migraine, your body is tense, your fingers start to be numb or tingle, that can lead to a stroke, y'all.
Yes.
It can take you out of here. And you really have to pay attention to how your body is reacting to stress. If you're getting married, you're doing a production, you're a little nervous, ANC, that's good. Okay, it'll pass because that product is coming and it's done, and it's a good and it's well done. But when you get to a point where your blood pressure is 195 over 188, that's stroke level. When you get to a point where you feel your eyesight is getting blurry and you're about to pass out, that's chronic. You understand? So we have to know the difference in the signs of our body and how it reacts to stress.
Yeah, my next question was actually going to be, how does stress affect the body? And I had to realize this for myself. I was doing too much. My body was stressed. I had to take a day off because I couldn't walk. Like out of nowhere. Like I was fine, went to work, was going throughout the day. By the end of the day, before I left work, like my knees, both my knees were aching. Like it was crazy because it was bad. And I'm like, I don't know, like what's going on? I know I'm getting up there, but dang. And my coworker like, oh girl, you might want to go sit down. So I'm like, all right, well maybe because I started going to the gym, doing the Stairmaster and everything, I put too much pressure on my knees or something. I don't know. So I'm just trying to guess, but by the time I got home, when I left work, I went and ran some errands. By the time I got home, I couldn't lift my leg like this. Like I just couldn't lift my leg. I had to physically take both hands and lift my leg and prop it up and put a knee brace on. But I was like, okay, I'm stressed out. It's too much. I ain't going to work tomorrow. Yeah. PTO, prepare the others.
So I was going to just say, I think really paying attention to your body is really, really important. To me, I think that stress is a silent killer.
Yes.
I really consider it a silent killer. I'm gonna just be transparent for a moment. Like some years ago, back like 7-8 years ago, when I was in graduate school, I was going to school full time. I was working full time. At the time, I just had my daughter, so I was still like breastfeeding and stuff like that. I was working like the night shift, and God had showed me something. I oftentimes did overtime, right? So I would go, and I would always go, and I had to do rounds on patients at the time. And I would always go, and I would always get this one floor, and it was the neuro floor, right? So to me, I was doing this for months. I would always go to this floor. I never thought nothing about it. I was like, oh, these some easy patients, bam, bam. The family's not really going to be in the way. Go in, get out, do what I got to do. Then one day, and I will always get migraines all the time. And a lot of times when I get migraines, I get a numbness on the side, or light sensitivity, I'll vomit and stuff like that. So I was getting a lot of migraines, and then God showed me one day, like, if you don't slow up,
You gonna be
this
on this
will
floor.
be it. And it took months. And every time, even when I did overtime, didn't even work that shift, I'd be like, why everyone keep giving me this floor? Like my shift give me this floor. When I'm doing overtime, they give me this floor, but it wasn't, and right once I got it, then I didn't get the floor no more. So it was like God wanted me to see, if you don't slow up,
You gonna be
Kim,
patient.
this is going to be you. So it's just like you really have to pay attention. And like a doctor told me, it was like one time, and I like lost like kind of consciousness a little bit from a migraine, and he was telling my husband like, she can go into a seizure state because her migraine is so bad. And it was because I was stressed, so I had to cut some things out. I had to slow up. I had to stop doing overtime and some other things. So it's really important to pay attention and know, pay attention to your body and to know when enough is enough.
All right, well, ladies, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have today. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in to Pastor Tony and Victorious Ministries International. We thank you for allowing us to be a part of the vision. Until next time, bye-bye.